This program is rated PG. It contains themes and scenes which may not be suitable for very young audiences. Parental guidance is advised.
Hey, sports fans, welcome to another edition of EBC Sports International. I'm Michael Hudson reporting from Seattle, Washington. With me today are our amazing EBC correspondents from around the world who will discuss sports topics during these interesting times. We hope everyone is staying safe during this pandemic. In the country's capital, we have Ken Cruz. What's going on?
Hola, let's get to it.
In Vegas, we have Aljamain Santos.
What's up, everybody? Great to be back.
In the Quezon City, Philippines, Ben Bernaldez.
Hi, everyone. Welcome to the program.
And in Vancouver, British Columbia, we have Jyoti Horvath.
What's up, guys?
And last but not least, we have Zarita Sese in Ontario, Canada.
Hi, guys.
So we're starting our show off today with some sports news from around the globe. Ken, go ahead and kick it off with some NBA news.
Well, basketball fans, rejoice. The NBA is back, baby. The NBA Board of Governors voted Thursday to approve a 22-team format to restart the 2019-2020 season, July the 31st in Orlando, Florida, the league announced. The National Basketball Players Association followed suit and approved the plan earlier today. The players' rep vote was unanimous. The owners received a 29-1 vote from the owners on the call, with the Portland Trail Blazers being the only team that vetoed and had a holdout. The NBA will conduct coronavirus testing on a nightly basis in Orlando, but will do so with lighter mouth or nasal swabs as opposed to the more intrusive ones that have made the headlines during the pandemic. A positive test will result in a quarantine of at least 7 days. That's important to note. As for the format, 13 Western Conference teams and 9 Eastern Conference teams will play 8 regular season seeding games, a possible play-in tournament for the 8th seed, and playoffs at the Walt Disney World Resort. The top 16 teams in the Eastern and Western Conferences will be joined by teams currently within 6 games of 8th place in the 2 conferences. So that's New Orleans, Portland, San Antonio, Sacramento, Phoenix, and the Washington Wizards. The play-in tournament will include the number 8 and number 9 teams in a conference. If the 9th seed finishes regular season within 4 games of the 8th, in that case, the 9th seed would need to beat the number 8 seed twice to earn the playoff berth, while the number 8 seed would need 1 win from the 2 potential games. Teams will begin training in Orlando starting July 9 to 11, sources said. The league also offered dates beyond the July 31st to October 12th season window, with the draft lottery set at August the 25th, the NBA draft on October the 15th, and the 2020-2021 season likely beginning December 1st. That's a very short vacation time after this regular season. And now the wait begins. Back to you, Mike.
Appreciate it, Ken, and I'm sure it's safe to say that all of us are pretty excited about the NBA season coming along. Jyoti, you have a great story to share with us about the first Black NHL player. What's that about?
That's right. So former NHL player Willie O'Ree has been inducted into the Canada Sports Hall of Fame. When I say the name Willie O'Ree, though, a lot of you won't know who I'm talking about. But Willie is the Black Canadian who's often referred to as the Jackie Robinson of ice hockey for breaking the color barrier in the sport. He made his NHL debut for the Boston Bruins in 1957 and played until 1979. And to put this whole story into context, there wasn't another Black player in the league until 1974. So that's about 17 and a half years in between the first and the next. So since 2008, Willie has been the NHL's diversity ambassador. He's also received the highest award a civilian can get in Canada, which is the Order of Canada, and has been elected into the Hockey Hall of Fame, among dozens of other notable honors. And as mentioned earlier, he can now add being a part of the Canada Sports Hall of Fame to that list. Mike?
Great. Thank you so much, Jolty. And lastly, Zarita, you do have another sports story for us. What do you have to share?
Thanks, Mike. So yeah, earlier this week, I was able to report on some responses from some NBA players about the current events. So let's take a look. For many, sports is seen as a temporary escape from reality, whether it's to forget a bad day or channel their pent-up energy. But as a response to the recent death of George Floyd, we've seen protests take place in all 50 states of the United States and even in countries like Canada. Athletes from the NBA did not hesitate to voice their solidarity with this movement, calling for an immediate end to such treatment. One of those prominent voices is head coach of the Phoenix Suns, Monty Williams, who wrote an open letter expressing how he felt. The opening words of the letter read, "I'm angry, I'm afraid, and I'm in pain." A statement that we've seen on countless social media posts, captions, conversations, and protest signs. With the future of the NBA still unknown, there are mixed emotions from fans and players alike as to what the league should do next. In a recent Zoom call with Coach Williams, he outlined the potential power that sports can have, especially during a time like this.
In my opinion, it's a connector in so many ways. When you're a kid, all you cared about was playing, being with your friends, wanting to win, and being able to go home and tell your parents about what happened. There were no barriers. Race wasn't involved. For the most part, social class was not involved in it. It was just the pure element of playing. I'm hopeful that, if we do get a chance to play, we become a bright spot for our world. Our world, it's not just our country, but the world in general is looking for something to grab a hold of that's authentic, that comes from a good place. But at the same time, I'm hopeful that sport doesn't deflect from the things that we need to pay attention to.
Alongside Coach Williams, players like Stephen Curry of the Golden State Warriors, Trae Young of the Atlanta Hawks, Malcolm Brogdon of the Indiana Pacers, and Jaylen Brown of the Boston Celtics joined the various protests happening in the country. When asked how important it was for him to represent his team, Coach Williams reminded all of us how we can make a change.
Do the best you can with what you have, and not worry about the size or the scope of who you're going to reach. You just do it.
Reporting from Toronto, Ontario, Canada, Zarita Sese, Eagle News. We live in interesting times.
Awesome story, Zarita. Thank you so much. We're going to go ahead and take a short break. When we come back, we'll start discussing our three main topics today, starting off with the return of the NBA. Don't go away. We'll be right back in a moment.
This weekend, tara na't mamangha sa galing at talento ng mga Pinoy sa iba't ibang sulok ng mundo.
It's now or never. Have you ever seen the rain? It's so easy.
Abangan sila at mapawaw dito lang sa pinakamalawak na talent competition on Philippine TV and online. Ito ang Tagisan ng Galing.
This program is presented by SMC Infrastructure, building a better world. Sandig sugar-free white coffee, puno ng white coffee taste without the sugar, kaya lower calories. Try mo na Sandig sugar-free white coffee. Sarap ng white coffee, now sugar-free. Vet-approved Nutri-Chops, the only premium dog food with active boost for optimum energy and prebiotics that help strengthen immunity. Just like Catherine Bernardo, gawing listo ganado ang fur babies niyo. Listo ganado sa Nutri-Chops. Magnolia Chicken Templados, delicious, ready to cook and freshly marinated daily. Pure Foods Luncheon Meat, pure sarap for every family. Star Chunky Cheese Corned Beef, ang cheesy ng corned beef mo. Walang duda, kids can tell na #1 ang Pure Food standard tender juicy. Ang tender, ang juicy, ang sarap. Co-presented by Cooper, expert in air conditioning and electromechanical. Also engaged in structural, electrical, fire protection, plumbing, and sanitary services. Cooper, your ultimate MEPS and air conditioning solutions. Unlad Incorporated International, fight against global poverty. New San Jose Builders Incorporated. Canrib Corporation, your ventilation and air conditioning specialist. Vita Herbs Philippines Green Coffee. Masarap, mabango, at healthy pa. Puerto Rico Resort and Convention Center, Cabiao, Nueva Ecija. I love Puerto Rico. In participation with Rain or Shine Elastomeric Waterproofing Paint, Matinco. R Square Variables Incorporated, CompuZell Computer Services, SciShow International Trading Corporation, DN Steel, EMAC UPB Roof Corporation.
Listo at ganado ang baby ko sa vet-approved Nutri-Chunks with active boost and prebiotics na pampalisto. Made with real meat, with essential nutrients to help them grow healthy and happy. Listo, ganado sa Nutri-Chunks.
Star Tollway is a 41.9-kilometer highway that stretches out from Santo Tomas, Batangas all the way to Batangas City. An important component of the company's portfolio, the NAIA Expressway project is a 5.4-kilometer elevated expressway that connects the Skyway system to NAIA Airport terminals and the entertainment city. SMC Infrastructure's ventures also include other projects aside from the toll road business.
Hey, Aggression Ho here, and I'm a white coffee lover. Creamy kasi, and very yummy. Pero mas masarap kung hindi nakaka-guilty. Check my new discovery, San-Made Sugar-Free White Coffee. Puno ng white coffee taste without the sugar, kaya lower calories. Try mo na! San-Made Sugar-Free White Coffee. Sarap ng white coffee, now sugar-free.
Ikaw lang ang star ng buhay ko. Para sa akin, perfect ka. Ibang klase ang sarap ng corned beef mo. Ang cheesy ng corned beef mo. Pag Star Chunky Cheese Corned Beef, sarap ng corned beef, inangat pa ng real cheese cubes. Kaya perfect ang sarap. Star Chunky Cheese Corned Beef.
Hey, welcome back, sports fans. Welcome back to EBC Sports International. I'm Michael Hudson. All right, let's get right back into it and talk about the return of the NBA. I think it's safe to say that all of us are pretty excited. So, Aljamin, what were your initial thoughts when you heard of the news and also the format of the season?
My initial thoughts were overjoyed. I couldn't be more happy to hear that the NBA is back. I think excited is an understatement for a lot of us who've been thirsting to see live sports again. I think the new format that the NBA is trying to roll out to appease those teams that are fighting for the 8th seed in the West and those in the East, I think is very interesting, providing the players play 8 season games to kind of determine who's going to be sitting at what position. Now, if you're the first seed, you're going to want to hope to perform the best out there, and you don't want to be the one to drop the ball, so to speak, trying to prove yourself as the first seed again. So I think that it's going to be an interesting game style of play. I would say it kind of brings back up the NBA All-Star game, where the format's completely changed. We're going to see a lot of players playing a lot harder than you normally would in a regular season, because this is kind of like a do or die. You got to perform your best. You got to bring your A game right away, and I think the only thing that really stuck out to me the most was the amount of teams on the West versus the East. I think that's one of the biggest things that stuck out to me, and which kind of makes sense because the West has a little bit more of a competitive conference, and everybody's a lot closer. So, but one of the biggest things too is that the Pelicans, right? I think that kind of stuck out to me the most. What do you guys think?
Well, one thing that is like, obvious here is that the NBA wants the Pelicans in. So let's just put that out there, right? So they want Zion, they want Lonzo Ball, they want Brandon Ingram. That brings people to their TVs. I get it. But the crazy thing is that, the Portland Trailblazers right now have a record of 29-37. The Pelicans, the Kings, and Spurs have 36 losses each, and then the Phoenix Suns at 39. So that is a very, very, very small differential in games. So as far as playing to do or die, this is going to be very intense. What's crazy though too is that as far as the regular season, it's going to be I think 16 days, 5 to 6 games a day, right? There's going to be 4 hours in between each game, and they're going to use 3 courts. So it's going to be pretty much like a summer league, but the games count, right? And so I think it's an extremely exciting time for anyone that loves the NBA because you don't have to wait a long time. Usually if the Lakers play for me, I mean, I try to watch as much basketball as I can, but obviously I watch all the Laker games I can. If the Lakers play, there's a chance that they'll play a back-to-back, right? And it's just oh man, awesome! I get to watch them 2 days in a row, 3 days in a row, whatever. The crazy thing too is that for the finals, they're looking to have it every other day. So it's every single game, from the regular season, the playoffs, all the way to the finals, is such a small window. What's dangerous is that there's the whole aspect of fatigue. The players have been sitting for 2 months now. Not sitting. I mean, I'm sure most of them, if not all of them, have a training regimen of some sort. But they haven't had court time. So for them to have about a month of practices probably isn't enough for the schedule. For what the schedule is ahead of them. This is especially the teams that are going to make a deep playoff run. And then after that, you only have a couple of weeks of vacation, and then it's already next season. So, as a fan, as a spectator, I'll take all the basketball I can get. As an NBA player, this is going to be tough.
So, Jolty, listen, who do you think has the slight edge as far as going into this redemption season of the NBA?
I mean, it's got to be the Lakers, right? Everyone knows I love LeBron. I'm a huge Lakers fan. Any team that has LeBron has the edge. That's hands down. Lakers are going to win it. It doesn't even matter. It's already predetermined. Anyway, so I don't like that they invited so many teams from the West. You already know who the top 8 teams are. Just get on with the playoffs. Start the playoffs. End the season. Give players the rest they need in between the seasons. Just get it over with. I love that it's back. I love basketball. But just get it over with. I mean, the number 9 team is the Trailblazers, and they're 3.5 games back. Yeah, they're going to give them 8 games to catch up, but they're 3.5 games back. They had the chance to make that up in the season, and they didn't do it. Just get it over with. Yeah. Have 8 teams on each side. Have the playoffs. Get it over with.
Wizards are 5.5 games back, by the way. Of Orlando.
That's ridiculous to me. I was like, what? You gave them that big of a leeway? I think the East was already decided, man. 5 games back, that's a lot.
Yeah.
Well, they gotta make it look, balanced some way, right? It's just all right, we'll put a number 9 in there.
Like I mentioned, the report was already out that there's no way that the league is letting Zion not be in the playoffs. Mm-hmm. And I mean, look what happened. Zion's in the 8-game playoff, right? It's ridiculous.
Yeah. Ben, what are your thoughts about this redemption right now? Do you think the NBA made a good move bringing it back? Do you think they should have scrapped the season? What are your thoughts on that?
From a fan perspective, I'm curious to see what the play's like. how it's gonna change every game. This is going to be new for everyone, obviously. So it's going to be really hard to tell who benefits and who's not from the new format. But I think until the season starts and we see the games, we'll see. And who knows who's gonna goes on top. But we all know that all these teams are very talented.
Yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, basketball's back. So I mean, it's kind of we're making all these conversations, which we should. But at the same time, too, like I will gladly take anything they give me, and this is a great, 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 great thing that the NBA has been able to put together. Is I mean, sooner than I thought they would, honestly.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. And before we move on to the next topic, one more question that I had, if anybody can answer this. Were there any teams in general that you thought should have went to Florida and vice versa? Do you feel like there's teams that shouldn't have been there, that should have just stayed home?
I mean, statistically, I think the Wizards.
I think the Suns are going to be included in there.
You thought who?
The Suns? I didn't think the Suns were going to be able to make their case there, but I guess, you know, if the Pelicans are below the Suns, then I guess you got to include the Suns.
One thing I did want to
I thought
add.
Zarita was going to be against the NBA playing. I thought Zarita was going to be against the NBA playing because then the Raptors would be champions for one more year. But
Excuse me, they are second in the East and third overall, so I think they have a fair shot. So we'll talk after all of this. We'll talk in October, Zolti. But I was going to add, it's also going to show what players and coaches have been doing this entire time. Like Ken was saying, like I'm sure they have their training regimen and everything like that, but they had essentially no distraction for 2 months. You could have studied so much for these teams regardless of who you're going to play. So I'm interested in how different some other coaches will kind of coach their teams given just how much time they've had.
You know who this break was good for? LeBron James, with his, you know, the guy's been playing for 17 years, right? So it's like this break, even though it wasn't on purpose, obviously, you know, this happened to everybody. But I mean, like, this could not have been any better for LeBron if he's been training, you know, on his own. It's great rest for him, and now he's pretty much fresh legs coming into a shortened, you know, rest of the season and playoffs. And, you know, so I think this is amazing, especially for you know, Anthony Davis, who's been banged up, right? I mean, then at the end of the day, you know, like he could still get injured.
Look at that smile on Ken's face talking about the Lakers.
Oh, I mean, I could talk Lakers all day, and I will. But you know, like you know,
yeah.
Well, those guys are staying home.
Well, for me, I would have loved to see the Golden State Warriors in there. I know they're the worst team in the league, but I would have loved to see the Splash Brothers without KD and see how far they.
Yeah, 15 and 50, you gotta stay home. Unfortunately, you know.
Unfortunately, Clay wasn't there, but I'm sure if he was there, it would have been reversed the record. But yeah, ladies and gentlemen, NBA coming back July 31st. We're all looking forward to it. We'll go ahead and move on to our next topic, which is going to be the NFL. So a couple of days ago, Drew Brees received a lot of backlash concerning comments about NFL players kneeling before the American flag during the national anthem, calling it disrespectful. He went on to issue 2 apologies on his Instagram account, saying that his statements were insensitive. Jolty, what's your opinion on the Drew Brees situation? Does he deserve forgiveness?
Okay, let me preface this by saying I don't agree with what he said. Like, Americans have the right to kneel before the flag during anthem. You know, that's what these soldiers are fighting for the right to do whatever you want, basically, you know, within the law. But they're also fighting for freedom of speech. And, you know, if he says something that's not, it's not really like racially insensitive or anything like, because he said he's okay with the protest. He agrees with the protest, but the flag, you know, that's sacred to him. You should stand before the flag during the national anthem. If that's how he feels, fine. Everyone else, move on. There's nothing wrong with someone feeling like that. If one person has their opinions and that's okay, the other person has their opinions and that's not okay. It's kind of like, you know, pick your poison. Like, are you for freedom of speech? Are you not for freedom of speech? Like I said, nothing in there was really racially and actually at all racially insensitive. It was just he feels the flag is sacred. He doesn't need to apologize. If that's how he feels, that's how he feels.
I think what's difficult with this whole thing is timing, right? You know, this situation that our nation is in, you know, at the moment, it's one of those things where he's a public figure, and anything that he says or does will be seen in a light that's like larger than, you know, the regular person. And for him to say these comments at this time is, you know, questionable at best. The thing that we have to take into consideration is that Drew Brees, you know, throughout the course of his career has been a very has had a very outstanding, you know, character. And as far as like, you know, the Drew Brees Foundation, it's donated about $33 million like globally, and just this year $5 million to the state of Louisiana. So I mean, he puts his money where his mouth is as far as like, you know, being you know, hospital, being a philanthropist, you know. And so I think it's difficult and challenging to, like, you know, when someone says any comments that are deemed as insensitive, and for it to ruin their entire, you know, career and their outlook, their character, their you know, and I think that's where it gets challenging. Is that, like, are we going to look at someone based on one tweet, one interview? That's hard. But at the same time too, like, we're in, you know, very difficult times, very interesting times, and, you know, whatever we say, especially whatever, you know, these celebrities, these athletes, these, you know, these guys in the limelight say, will be taken into consideration. And one thing too, though, is that Michael Thomas, his teammate, did say he forgave Drew Brees. So that's big, and I think that, you know, that goes for, you know, saying, you know, that goes to say that maybe it's something that we should take into consideration and then move on to.
Zarita, do you think some of the athletes that responded to Drew Brees' response was a little of an overreaction, or do you think they were appropriate in how they responded to him?
To be completely honest, I'm going to say that I completely agree with the backlash that he has received. Again, I'm not saying that his opinions don't matter because they go against other people's. It's just, you have to be cognizant of just how intense this time is. And Maria Taylor on First Take actually said it perfectly. It's like, if he had just worded that apology or that address differently, then it would be a totally different situation, because he first started with, no matter what, I don't agree with anyone taking a stance, and then went on to make his argument. She said, had he said, I totally understand where everyone's coming from and I agree, but, and then stated his, you know, agreement with his past comments, that's different as well. But it's just, people have to be aware that protests aren't supposed to happen at convenient times. Then that's not a protest. It's going to happen when everyone's eyes are on you, and it's going to be a controversial time, because that's the exact purpose of a protest. So again, you know, his teammates have said, I believe him. I know he's going to make up for it. And they all said that. But at the same time, all eyes are on Drew Brees because of the type of man that he is. So I think he should have known better, especially given the situation.
Absolutely. Aljamin, what do you think this does to the Saints, to their team, their chemistry? Do you think it negatively affects it? Do you think it makes it stronger? What are your thoughts on that?
I know that through difficult times, people can rise up and they can become better. This is the type of situation where, you know, Brees is going to be challenged as far as his chemistry with his teammates. You know, unfortunately, it may have created a different light on his character with his teammates. I know they expressed their forgiveness and things like that, which is, you know, it's a personal relationship between players and their quarterback, and as an organization and a team as a whole. I really do hope that, you know, his teammates are able to accept him. If they don't, you know, I respect that as well, because of, like everybody, Zarita had mentioned, you know, he should have been a little bit more aware of what's going on with the rest of the world. You know, it kind of supports the argument of Kaepernick's original protest. I think it was a little insensitive on his part to to share those kind of thoughts as well, in opposition to Kaepernick's original protest. So
Absolutely,
it's really hard to say. I think that his teammates are proving to be a lot bigger people to accept Drew Brees, and that says a lot about their character and really shows what the community of the NFL can really do. The power that it has to send a message to others that there is room for forgiveness if people are able to accept their flaws and some of their some of their ideals that may not be sensitive to what's going on with the rest of the world.
Absolutely. We're going to go ahead and take a quick break, and we'll continue this this discussion when we come back.
This weekend, tara na't mamangha sa galing at talento ng mga Pinoy sa iba't ibang sulok ng mundo.
It's now or never. Have you ever seen the rain? It's so easy.
Abangan sila at mapawaw dito lang sa pinakamalawak na talent competition on Philippine TV and online. Ito ang Tagisan ng Galing.
The ones that make a brighter day, so let's start living.
This program is presented by SMC Infrastructure, building a better world. Sandig sugar-free white coffee, puno ng white coffee taste without the sugar, kaya lower calories. Try mo na Sandig sugar-free white coffee. Sarap ng white coffee, now sugar-free. Vet-approved NutriChops, the only premium dog food with active boost for optimum energy and prebiotics that help strengthen immunity. Just like Catherine Bernardo, gawing listo, ganado ang fur babies niyo. Listo ganado sa NutriChops. Magnolia Chicken Templados, delicious, ready to cook and freshly marinated daily. Pure Foods Luncheon Meat, pure sarap for every family. Star Chunky Cheese Corned Beef, ang cheesy ng corned beef mo. Walang duda, kids can tell na #1 ang Pure Foods Tender Juicy. Ang tender, ang juicy, ang sarap. Co-presented by Cooper, expert in air conditioning and electromechanical. Also engaged in structural, electrical, fire protection, plumbing, and sanitary services. Cooper, your ultimate MEPS and air conditioning solutions. Unlad Incorporated International, fight against global poverty. New San Jose Builders Incorporated. Canrib Corporation, your ventilation and air conditioning specialist. Vita Herbs Philippines Green Coffee. Masarap, mabango, at healthy pa. Puerto Rico Resort and Convention Center, Cabiao, Nueva Ecija. I love Puerto Rico. In participation with Rain or Shine Elastomeric Waterproofing Paint, Matinco. R Square Variables Incorporated, CompuZell Computer Services, Saisho International Trading Corporation, DN Steel, EMAC UPB Roof Corporation.
Listo at ganado ang baby ko sa vet-approved NutriChunks with active boost and prebiotics na pampalisto. Made with real meat, with essential nutrients to help them grow healthy and happy. Listo, ganado sa NutriChunks.
To date, SMC Infrastructure remains at the forefront of Boracay Airport's modernization. The current and long-term developments include the construction of an international airport passenger terminal and the extension of the existing runway to better serve bigger aircrafts, providing tourists with world-class access to this slice of paradise.
Hey, Gretchen Ho here, and I'm a white coffee lover. Creamy kasi, and very yummy. Pero mas masarap kung hindi nakaka-guilty. Check my new discovery, Sandmix Sugar-Free White Coffee. Puno ng white coffee taste without the sugar, kaya lower calories. Try mo na! Sandmix Sugar-Free White Coffee. Sarap ng white coffee, now sugar-free.
Bakit natin ipinagluluto ang mga mahal natin? We want them to feel special. Some meaty luncheon meat that we serve. If your pure intentions had a taste, it would taste like Pure Foods. Pure sarap, Pure Foods luncheon meat.
Hello, sports fans. Welcome back to EBC Sports International. My name is Michael Hudson, reporting from Seattle, Washington. And we're continuing our discussion with Drew Brees' comments that he did a couple of days ago. Ben, what were your facts that you had about the story?
Oh, well, NFL Commissioner Roger Goodell admitted last Friday that the league had been wrong to silence players' protest as it responded to calls from a group of players to issue an explicit condemnation of racism. He made a video message posted on social media saying that the league would now support peaceful protests from players in the future. So to avoid any more controversies in the NFL, so NFL will be more open to peaceful protests from the players in the future.
I just want to say that I think that's a huge step in the right direction because, like, with the whole Kaepernick situation, I think the NFL's response to that helped fuel the fire of the division. With this announcement, I think that helps in at least giving the players, giving the teams options to be able to speak their mind, and I think that's huge, and can hopefully help unify rather than continue to divide.
Definitely, and I think I do agree with Ken that NFL is definitely stepping in the right direction. So only time will tell. We'll see what happens. We'll continue to give you guys updates of what goes on. So moving on to our last topic, as we all know, there's a lot of chaos and protesting right now, especially after the unfortunate death of George Floyd. We've seen numerous celebrities such as Killer Mike, Steven Jackson, and Jamie Foxx proclaim the importance of calling out racism and preaching for systematic change when it comes to the police departments in America. However, one athlete stands out, and that's Los Angeles Lakers superstar LeBron James. His impact has been huge, starting with schools, helping underprivileged children, and speaking out during social injustices. Ken, I know you're the biggest Lakers fan here. Share with us your thoughts on LeBron's legacy as it pertains to the social efforts.
I think, especially with LeBron was one of those guys that even when he wasn't a Laker, I didn't like him on the court just because of how, he combated my favorite player at the time, which was Kobe Bryant, right? I mean, and that makes sense. But I always respected LeBron James as a man, as an ambassador of the NBA, ambassador of basketball, and as a person, as a franchise, as a entrepreneur. I mean, the guy is, he gives and gives and gives. He makes a lot of money, yes, but he also gives a lot of money, and I think that's what's huge and something to respect, especially like when he came out with that school in Ohio, the I Promise School. I mean, that's something that changes lives for generations, and I think that's something that he knew and he understood as someone that grew up in an impoverished household, and he doesn't forget his roots, and I think that's something that's very important. He knew where he came from, and he's trying to help people that are in similar situations to how he grew up. And that's something that deserves a lot of respect, and something that I definitely respect him for. He's an amazing basketball player, one of the GOATs, but I think he's an even better. He's even better as a person off the court. I mean, I think that's the guy doesn't just dribble; he does everything.
Ben, what are your thoughts about LeBron's legacy off the court?
Well, I'm not a big LeBron fan, but I'm a fan of his advocacy. So as a player, I may not be his number one fan, but what he does for the children and the community would really set a good example for other players as well. So I think this also changes my perception of LeBron James, of him. So I think more and more players should also be the same, doing what LeBron is doing for the community and the kids.
Zarita, why do you think it's so easy? I mean, there's a lot of athletes out there that are seems like they're afraid to speak out. I mean, why do you think LeBron is so quick to speaking out right away?
I think it's easy for him because he completely understands the power of his voice. He understands how many people he reaches, and he understands how much he can make a difference. And I think he's so well in tune with so many different groups of people that he can reach out, and he knows how to address all of them, from the younger generations to, even the older ones. He knows how to reach them, and he knows how to impact them. And the most recent video that he released where, he was called out to just stick to sports, the way he does those things, it's so subtle, but it makes such a huge impact. And I think that's why he's so good at it, because he understands how to really impact people.
Absolutely. Jolty, what do you think about that?
It's one of those things where not everyone knows how to handle the hate that he gets, because even though he does so much for his community, it's not only his community but all communities around the country, right? Like this guy donates so much. He's such a powerful activist. He, like Zarina said, he knows the power of his own voice. But no matter what stance you take, you're gonna get hate from one side or the other. And a lot of players don't know how to take that. They're not emotionally mature enough to take that hate. And I think LeBron has been handling himself this way since he was 18 years old. And he's just kind of gone beyond the level of, I can't take this hate anymore. It's more like, bring it on. I'm going to do what I want to do. Whether you like it or not, this is how I feel. And it's been nothing but great things for his community and all the communities he's helped around the country.
Definitely agree with that.
And he can back it up on the court too.
He can, definitely. Anjuman, do you think that, do you think LeBron has the power to inspire other athletes, no matter what color they are, to basically do what he's doing right now?
In short, yes. LeBron comes from a part of it. He comes from a certain part in his life that he had to work to get out of where he was. He didn't settle for what was there for him. He strived for more, and I think that for someone that comes from an impoverished household, working against whatever is around him, the exterior, what's the word I'm looking for, influences, he didn't allow it to hold him down. So there's something about a man that comes from the bottom and works his way up to become one of the top athletes in the world right now. And you don't get there by your mom's holding your hand. You don't get there by your dad just helping you, guide you through all these things in life. You have to have a certain type of character trait to work against the odds and become the top dog. Now, come from Akron in Ohio, and now one of the stars in the NBA, he never would have dreamed, and he said that before, he never would have thought that he would be where he is today. And as a person who has a similar upbringing, I can appreciate somebody who works that hard to get to where he is. So yeah, he does have a voice, and he's using that voice to empower others, and that's something that not everybody has the maturity to do. And you only get that when you work hard against the grain. You work against opposition that has been built to slow you down and stop your progress, but he pushed through that. And I think that he's able to inspire the future. He's even inspiring generations that were here before him, and what he does for his fellow Ohioans. And is that even a term? But I mean, just the people that he's come from. You know what I mean? And I think that what he's started will continue to go on and transcend generations because of what it's rooted in. And that's his love for the community, love for the kids, who didn't have what he also didn't have when he was growing up. And I think that a lot of athletes today can learn from him and to look to their own communities within their hometowns or wherever they are now as professional athletes, and look to those small communities that don't have someone that can necessarily organize ways to receive donations from athletes and things like that. Because, you know, there's so much work to do in the world, and there's so many things that people can do for each other that will help make the world a little bit of a better place, right?
Yeah.
So,
sorry, I just wanted to add to Alderman's point is that you have to remember that no matter what LeBron accumulates in terms of wealth, status, he will always be part of a group that will always be oppressed. And I think the fact that he's part of that group, he does have vested interest in continuing to fight, and because he's able to speak up, because he experiences it himself no matter what level he gets to, I think that's even more argument for him to say, listen to me because I'm going through it. One that really stuck out to me, I think it was maybe a year or two ago, no matter his status, someone vandalized his home. His gated community, it was still vandalized. So no matter what he does, he will always be part of this community.
You know what's crazy too is that he has been in the limelight since he was like early high school, right? So that's over 20 years pretty much that he's been in the public eye. Like if you look at his Instagram, he has about like 65 million followers. So literally everything he does and says is taken under like a crazy microscope. But what's also crazy is that he's pretty much been like squeaky clean his entire the entire 20 years, and that's saying something. You know, some of these players, you know, they that grew up like before they got famous, like said like really insensitive things, like when they were in high school and they were in college, and then later on they had to apologize for it. For the most part, LeBron has been the beacon of the face of the NBA for over 10 years now. And so and it's not something that he takes lightly, even though like if there's a crime that LeBron James has committed, it's sometimes being a little too corny and he has like a little too many dad jokes, right? I mean, if you look at his Instagram, sometimes you're just like, dude, like Taco Tuesday, man, come on. But I mean, at the same time too, it's just like, dude, you can see how great of a father he is, how great of a husband he is, how great of a teammate he is. I mean, it's something that, I mean, like I don't like following a lot of like athletes or celebrities because they kind of like mess up my feed. But I mean, I follow him specifically because the dude is a great role model in all aspects. One thing I did want to bring up is that, you know, when we're talking about GOAT, right, we've mentioned this all these weeks. Michael Jordan, absolutely the GOAT. But he does things in a lot more of a quieter tone. And I think the big thing is that he didn't grow up in the social media age, right? Just wanted to bring out that that announced today, Michael Jordan Brand, donating $100 million to organizations fighting for racial justice and equality. So I just wanted to shout out Michael Jordan, shout out the GOAT. He's also, I think, you know, a GOAT outside of basketball, just not as widely seen as far as his philanthropy as guys like LeBron James, even guys like Kobe Bryant. And his organizations too. So.
Well, that's definitely great news, and we hope that other athletes will step up and continue to support the causes because everybody needs help, and especially right now, and hopefully we can remain united to get through it. So that's it for our show today for this week's edition for EBC Sports International. On behalf of everyone on our panel, thank you for joining us, and be sure to tune in next week. Make sure to visit our websites at eaglenews.net and eaglenewslive.com. Like us on Facebook and follow us on Twitter at twitter.com/eaglenewsph. Share your thoughts and comments. My name is Michael Hudson. We live in interesting times.
This weekend, tara na't mamangha sa galing at talento ng mga Pinoy sa iba't ibang sulok ng mundo.
It's now or never. Have you ever seen the rain? It's so
sila at mapawaw dito lang sa pinakamalawak na talent competition on Philippine TV and online. Ito ang Tagisan ng Galing.
The ones that make a brighter day.